Hello again, everyone. It's Amy-Rose and Agne, and we're here to chat to you once again about everything wedding photography and videography for our online courses. So yeah, my name's Amy-Rose and my business is Amy-Rose Photography. Instagram handle is Amy-Rose Deftly, and off you go.
Yeah, my name is Agne Harris and I'm a wedding videographer. All of my social medias are different. So website is agnesweddingfilms.co.uk. Instagram is Agne_Harris, but I am gonna fix all of that very, very soon and make everything match.
So we've both worked with other photographers, other videographers, and we don't necessarily agree with the way that they're shooting a wedding or how they are on the day or whatever. So it's a bit of juice here. Like, basically, what is your main beef with photographers? I'll let you go first.
There we go. Yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic because I'll just start off with, I always shoot with a photographer. Every wedding I go to, I shoot with a photographer. Photographers don't always shoot with videographers. In fact, a lot of the times they shoot on their own or with an assistant. Maybe less so nowadays because I think videography is, being a bit more popular. But basically, I turn up on the day and I just want us to be a team, to be, on the same page, to be good friends immediately, and to just, go with the
Get those referrals.
No.
You're now my new best friend.
Here's my business card. It's out of date, I'm sorry, and I'm changing my logo very soon, so just throw it in the bin.
Ignore the logo.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically I have this expectation of this other person that I'm going to be working with, and I'd say 85% of the time it goes the way that I expect and I get on with them great. The other 15%, it doesn't. So there's a few different things that they do. I can sort of tell if it's going to go well or not in the very beginning of the day. So you say your highs, I'm so-and-so and they're blah, blah, blah. And you say, oh, by the way, if I'm ever in any of your shots, just tell me to get out the way. And they're normally like, oh, yeah, you too. Just, don't even worry about it. But sometimes you get the odd person who goes, oh, don't worry, I'll tell you. In a jokey way, but you're like, ha, shit.
Change the tone, yeah.
Oh, this is not going to be easy because sometimes the photographers tend to take the lead, and because they're used to working on your own, they can treat you like you're sort of second best. Like they need to do, yeah, clearly. They do their thing and then they give you the scraps, to pick up.
Agne's proper triggered right now.
Yeah, I think I should have written these down because I'm going to be jumping. Well, I just have to say that this happens very rarely, any sort of beef you have with a photographer, but sometimes it does happen. So let's just throw one out. It really bugs me when a photographer keeps coming in to talk to people instead of shooting them. To the bride or the bridesmaids, or you're shooting them just having their morning, and the photographer will come in and be like, oh yeah, well, can I see your handbag? Or they're trying to be friends with them, but you're like, can you do that from a distance? Also just don't.
Okay, that's interesting, because I'd never even thought about that actually, so this is good for me to know.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm really bitchy, because I talk to people as well, but I will try to, I'm always...
Stay out the scene.
Yeah, I'm trying to see all the time where the photographer is so that I'm not in there with them. Sometimes, and I know that, we're both like this, when something starts going wrong, you go in there to help them. But sometimes I feel like you have to be like the documentary filmmaker, where if the gazelle is being eaten by the lion, you just let the lion eat the gazelle. Don't try and go in there and help them with safety pins. Just let the boys figure out how to do their buttonholes. Yeah. No, if they need help, fine, help them. But sometimes it's just too much. You'll be filming the bride and groom having a moment, and then the photographer will come up and start fixing something, and you're like, just tell her to
Hands off.
fix her hair herself or something like that.
I like that.
So that's just one little one.
Probably like a bit invasive of like even couple space as well, actually.
Sometimes you're like, oh, this couple's great, we can be best friends with them. And off the bat, you're like, everyone's making jokes. But sometimes the photographer just, or the videographer just doesn't see the line, and they're just like throwing jokes out, and you're like, this isn't the time. No one cares about you. Like, this isn't your day. There was one wedding. Can we give examples? Not with specific people, but there was a wedding I filmed recently, and I'll just have to say that the bride and groom later complained about the photographer to me personally, so I felt like I was a bit justified in thinking this. But the photographer, there was two of them, was just so involved in everything. Like he came into bridal prep and there was like some stress going on. There was like emotions were high, everyone was a bit on edge because of something. And the photographer just like sat down, put his feet on the table and was like commenting on what the boys were doing, like,
He came in and sat down and put
his feet up on the table and was like, like talking about his life and about watching these TV shows, and I was just like, just read the room, they're not, and people are like reacting and saying, this and that.
He sat down, like, we don't sit down.
No, he sat down. I think that was my first beef with him. I haven't sat down yet.
Yeah, why do you get to sit down?
Yeah, but just things like that, like just read the room. You don't have to be so involved. I think it's different for video because we're also capturing audio. We're also capturing visuals. So like, if people are talking amongst themselves and then a photographer says something and they all look over at him, that's your shot sort of ruined. Or so that's my one beef. How about you?
Okay, so my beef with you videographers, again, like, I'm just gonna echo what you said about like generally it's all really good. I feel like lockdown definitely spawned a lot of like entry-level photographers and videographers because there was so much demand for wedding media, because all the established businesses were kind of booked, so it was pretty much, it felt like anyone with a camera was going to get hired at the point where all the postponements were happening and the restrictions were lifted and weddings were happening again. So I definitely had like worked with videographers who they've probably not done that many weddings, but I found that they really overcompensated for that with like too much confidence, and actually they didn't, it's a little bit of an unwritten rule that the photographer does kind of manage things a little bit on the day, like especially with group shots and all that kind of stuff. Not saying that they're necessarily in charge, but
they're the sheepdog.
They're rounding people up, and ideally the dream thing is working as a team. But yeah, working with videographers who totally kind of didn't really get that like almost unwritten rule really, and they'll kind of come in and they'll start doing a lot of like weird cheesy posing or like asking for stuff. Like I had one wedding where he just kept asking for this bride to like walk the length of the bridal prep room with the lipstick in her hand and then get to the mirror and put the lipstick on. But she did it like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, it was so different to how I shoot, like, and you shoot, we go documentary stuff. And he was telling me to get out of his shot because I was basically taking a photo. Oh no, sorry, he was asking the bridesmaid to do that. So he was asking the bridesmaid to run up and down this bridal prep room. And I was taking a photo, it's a beautiful moment of the bride and her like 4-year-old daughter. They were just sort of cuddled up by the end of the bed. They were just like, and the beautiful light was perfect. And I was trying to get that shot, but it intervened with him getting this bridesmaid to walk to the mirror, so he asked me to get out of his shot, and I was like, really the priority here is, for me anyway, to be photographing and I mean, I guess it kind of comes down again to like the style preference that the couple have booked you for, but again, and that will happen. There tends to be a bit of a power play sometimes, or a power struggle rather, like on couples portraits, if you've got someone who doesn't work with couples in the same way that you do, because like, you know, documentary style photographers, we're after movement in our photos, believe it or not, like, and that's what most videographers want, because they, you know, they want it to feel candid and easygoing and all that kind of stuff. But then if I work with a videographer that was really into posing, or like getting couples to repeat things over and over again, I feel like that really steals the energy from the couple. And like, you're so used to, again, like managing the couple on the portraits and keeping their enthusiasm and energy high. If you've then got a videographer that's working against what you're trying to achieve there, that really causes a lot of friction. And like, I have definitely a couple of times sort of spoken to a videographer and said like, this isn't working very well, like this is how I think we're best off doing this. And if it's a case sometimes if you get your stuff and they get their stuff, that's fine. Another thing that's happened is videographers have taken a couple off the portraits without even speaking to me that they were going to do that. And it's not like, God, they haven't told me and I should be the one that's saying we should go for couples portraits. It's more the fact that we both need the same thing. So this couple is now going to end up like what would have been 15-20 minutes out on couples portraits, now having to do like 30-40 minutes, and that's time away from the guests.
And then by the time they're out with you, their energies of like,
oh,
they've already done this before.
Yeah, they really don't care. They just want to be hanging out having fun. So I feel like if you're in it together as a team, that's just a much better approach. I know, only because I've got videographer friends as well, actually, believe it or not. But like, I've seen so much video, and this is beef on the videographer's part, of like photographers getting in their shots, and like, especially during the ceremony and stuff like that, like if you're filming from the back, the photographer's always like right there with the couple at the front. And I can imagine that would get very frustrating. But I would say generally with me, it's like the power struggle. And how do you deal with that in the moment when you didn't realise how much of a power struggle there would be, and then you're on the couples portraits, like...
That's actually the hardest part of the day when you're working together, because the rest of the day you can go off your separate ways. Yeah. I suppose like maybe the ceremony and the couples portraits is where, if your style is different, you will really see it. Yeah. The couples more than anything, because once the ceremony starts, there's not much you can do. You're just stood there. But yeah, the couples portraits, you're actually throwing out ideas and... Yeah.
And then you've kind of gone and had that, like, those issues with that person, then you have to go and sit down and have a meal with them. And make conversation, and like, it's like, I just don't want to be doing
I've hid
now.
from people before, like photographers.
I'm going to go and eat in my car.
I'm actually not hungry. Go to the kitchen. Can you bring my meal to my car, please? Yeah, but I've got the same, obviously, like the same thing with the, when you're working with a different style photographer, it's just so difficult.
Isn't it interesting, like these couples are booking two very different styles of people?
I don't get it. I think maybe that comes from someone recommended this photographer and then someone recommended this video. Maybe to them, they don't see that the styles are different. They just see pretty pictures and pretty video. You know, let's hire them.
I think sometimes as well, like, and you said on the other one that we did that, you know, if there's money left over in the budget for a videographer, that's what they go for. But then sometimes that money left in the budget might be like 300 or 400 quid or whatever, which is fine because people make a business out of shooting weddings for 300 or 400 quid. Yeah. I'm not sure how, but they do. But that might be someone who is entry level, and they don't necessarily understand the wedding etiquette, and they've not experienced working with other people. So it's definitely happened with a few of my weddings. And then it just makes your day so difficult.
It does. Because then after that you have to be like, yeah, well, that was good, wasn't it? You're just exhausted by it, and you're thinking, I just want to go home now.
Yeah.
I've
so precious, aren't we?
Going from what you said, I've recently spoke to another photographer about his experience, because he was saying a similar thing about a wedding that he'd shot with an amateur wedding videographer, and he said this girl was just all over the place on the day, and she was like getting in the wrong positions and then not getting the shot because she was clearly standing somewhere where you know not to stand. And then the couple ended up being really disappointed in their film, and they sort of said this to her, like, this is missing or that. And this girl ended up blaming the photographer basically because of, I don't know, stuff. I don't even know how, but this is another thing that's really big on like wedding etiquette. No matter how badly things are going, or if you've
can't take someone of your team down. Yeah.
You never blame the other. Even if you know that the other person was making it really difficult for you, I would never email the couple and say, I'm so sorry, there's not a lot of portraits of you two. The photographers were really annoying.
Because what it does is it makes you look bitter and like not
like you don't know what you're doing at your job. Yeah.
Same goes for like, you can't say anything to the couple about the venue if the venue decided to feed you 3 fingers of sandwiches and you're going to be working for 12 hours. Like you can't. That's what's so difficult is you're sworn to secrecy about all these things that go on behind the scenes and the nuances to weddings, because you have to put on that professional front. So that's probably a good reason why we're putting these things together, like, you know, to just get it out in the open and like feel better about it.
Well, there's another thing that I find quite difficult, and this isn't necessarily something that photographers maybe do wrong, but when I know that I'm going to be working with a team of photographers, so 2, I'm like, damn, that's going to be twice as hard. Because when you're there on the day, you know, you become that team that I mentioned before. You know, you're there hand in hand, you're sort of saying, right, confetti shot, it's going to be me and you, and we're going to be doing this. Ceremony, it's going to be me and you, and we're going to be filming it like this. If it's the photographer and their assistant, then they're the team, and you're the sort of third wheel. So I find myself still in that same sort of etiquette of like, hey guys, cool, so what are we doing? Da da da. And sometimes they act like they don't hear you, or they sort of just
rude.
Not necessarily in like a rude way, but I think they're sat there discussing the things that we would be discussing with each other. So where are you going to be standing in the ceremony? Where are you going to be standing for this? And I'm there like, I need to know these things. Because at the end of the day, the hierarchy really should be photographer, videographer, and then assistants or second shooters. And then the second shooters will be getting out of both of your ways. But sometimes what happens is photographer, and then they sort of put you in the... Absolutely. They'll work around
us. Because they're pals as well.
They're pals, or they're husband and wife team, or they're, you know, whatever it is. And it sort of makes it a bit harder on the day, because when they sit down to eat, they'll be talking about their friends or their things that they have going on. And you're just sort of sat around like, who's that? What happened? Fill me in.
Let me just scooch in right here.
And they're like, why is she here? You can't sit with us. So yeah, it sort of makes the day a little bit harder because you feel like left out. And also, you feel like you have to fight a little bit more to get your shots, because even though the second shooter might sort of technically know to get out of your way, but you're then having to say, like in the ceremony, I tend to stand in the front where the photographer is. So you and I will have our cameras on the bride's face. And then I put a second camera on the groom's face on the other side. And then I'll have a third camera, if I can, on the very end of the aisle that's just capturing both of them. If there's a second shooter, they will normally be stood at the back where my camera is. So then I have to go and discuss with them, is it okay if I put my camera there and you work around it? And then there's this like, okay, I'll try to, you know, crouch in front of it or something. And sometimes they stand up, they forget the camera's there, they just stand there. And
how you'd forget.
I know, it's interesting, but then, you know, having said about, you know, how you said about it's really difficult to work with people with different styles. I think as a videographer, like sometimes you get put with photographers that use like reflectors and lots of posy things, reflectors and flash out on a sunny day.
Oh man, I find it mad that that still goes on.
I know, and again, it's just a different style.
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
it works, but it doesn't work with the way that I shoot, because I need the couple to be free to roam and for me to shoot them. Instead, I've then got a second photographer who stood there right next to them with a reflector.
Because you've got different lens lengths on probably as well.
Exactly.
It's almost like you're forced to shoot how they shoot.
Yeah, because you can't be wide if they're stood right next to them. For example, then you have to come in close as well. So I actually had a team of photographers at this one wedding I did, and they were reflectory photographers.
Reflector crew.
Yep. And as we were going to walk to the place where we were going to do the couple shoot, I said, I'm just going to film the couple while we were walking up there so that we don't waste time. I'm film them walking, it's nice. And we started walking, and the second photographer was in front of the couple and I was behind, and clearly I got in his shot because I was filming the couple walking, and he got really frustrated and he just like paused and he was like, actually, sorry, can we just do this by ourselves? Like this whole, he meant, can you stay behind for the portraits so that we can just do this, like without you getting in the way? And I was like, I'm sorry, but I need this just as much as you do.
Yeah, right.
And that whole portrait session was so difficult because every time they would stage them, and as soon as they put the reflector down, and I would have then been like, okay, now can I take a few shots? They would just lead them straight on, like no beat, nothing, just next.
Okay.
And you don't want to have that fight in front of the couple. You don't want to be like, wait, I have some stuff to do here too, because I wasn't able to while you guys were both in this shot.
The second that there's that tension there, the couples will feed off that, and then you again won't be able to get what you need to get.
Yeah, so you're just sat there in the background like, okay, let's keep moving, la la la. So I just waited until they finished with their whole thing, and then they were like, right, cool, now we're running back to the venue. And I said to the couple, let's walk back to the venue, but I'm gonna just say pause for a minute or two so that I can get some shots. So we did that, and they had such a great time. They were just the best couple. And yeah, we got back. And then apparently I found out later that the couple of the photographers had got back, and the venue manager was like, where's the couple? Like, we're about to call them in. And the photographers were like, oh, the videographer's just taking our time with them. I told you this is more than
Oh man.
Yeah, the videographer's just taking her sweet time with them.
Yeah, that's awful, isn't
like,
it? You
as
can't throw
if.
someone under a bus like that.
Especially when you just made no effort for us to do this at the same time.
Yeah.
And then,
Who are these people? Like, how do they must have like such low emotional intelligence or IQ.
They just don't. I think their main source of income was studio photography,
Right, okay.
and then they do the odd wedding photography thing as well. So then you can tell that they're used to working for themselves, with each other, and no one else matters.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult.
Yeah.
But I did have to say that sometimes the difference in style doesn't necessarily mean you can't work together. There was one wedding I shot. This was years ago, and I don't remember the name of this photographer, but he was so fun and so funny and just so kind. He was reflectors all day, flash all day,
Okay.
Posing and this and that. And he had an assistant as well, so it was like it should have not worked between us.
Yeah.
But he just was so kind and caring, and I don't know if maybe it was because he was an older man and he felt like the need
He's probably in love with you.
He was probably obsessed with me. No, I think maybe he had this need of like to help me out as like a younger female video. I need all the help I can get.
Distress,
Yeah,
right.
I was in such distress. No, but we just worked really great because every time he did something, he was like, right, now you do something. Now I went in
Okay.
and did stuff. And he was like, where would work for you if we took them? And I would say, can we go into the field? And he's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought that, but yeah, let's try that. And then he did his weird stuff and then I did my stuff. So there's a way to make that work. It's just you have to be empathetic to the other side.
This is it. Like the underlying theme is respect.
Have a little
Respect me.
Yeah. Just you're not on your own, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Like we've all got, jobs to be doing. We all need to be able to work together. Same goes for venues. Like, just I've had recently, like, I needed to get some detailed shots of a room. And I was like, you know, could you light the candles please, so that I can get these shots, because they were about to be seated in like 2 minutes. So they've not even finished lighting the candles, and they're asking the guests to come, and the guests kind of come and start sitting at the tables, and I'm like, you've not allowed me even 30 seconds to get photos of the room. You know that I need to get it. And the coordinator was like, yeah, but our chefs are running, like, they're really not happy with how far it's running behind and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I get it, but that wasn't my fault it was running behind in the first place. But I still am paid to be here, and this is part of what I do.
And you've had all morning to light these candles.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a beef with the venue actually. Like, I get it. Like, some tea lights don't last very long, but give me 2 minutes. That end rather than that end, because they'll be up from the tables before those candles have gone. So, and then often, even if it's not little tea lights, it'll be big candles. But you do need, like, you know, 5 minutes to capture photos of the room before everyone comes in.
Because only the first people will get to see the room in its glory.
Yeah.
Once those 2 people are sat down, it looks not so glorious anymore.
Totally trashed.
Yeah, they just ruin it. Like the bride and groom, sometimes they call them in to show them, which is nice, because then you know it's going to be ready before everyone gets called in.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, by the time the bride and groom come in, the room is filled with people, and everyone's bags are everywhere, and chaos basically.
That's it. It's amazing how quickly a few people can trash a beautiful room.
Yeah. Is there anything that you think you do that annoys videographers? Like, but you just can't help? Yeah.
Probably just like asking for more bread all the time. I think probably I am a bit of a control freak, and that's because I hold really high expectations of myself and my work. So I could probably, I find it more difficult to just go with the flow. Like, if a videographer decides that they want to take over on the couple's portraits for a lengthy period of time, like we've discussed before, like, you know, 30 seconds or whatever, it's a really nice, you take over for a sec. But if they decide that they want to
keep in charge,
run the couple's portraits and decide where we're going for everything, which, you know, they have a right to do, they need to get their stuff as well. But I think I would probably start to get a bit stroppy with that, and I might be a bit thievery.
Oh man, yeah.
But, I mean, we're all trying to get like what we need to get, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you'll have one person who likes the shots in the field with the blue sky, and other people that would prefer being in a forest with the leaves behind.
Yeah.
And then you're both being like, no, let's go this way.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I want to go that way.
Tug of war.
Yeah.
We can only do our best to work with people. Creative differences happen, and that's fine.
Yeah. I feel like I get in the way when I'm like filming the couples dance, and then, because I've started recently to get my gimbal back out.
Okay.
Because I'd stopped using it. I was like, this is too much faff, I can't be bothered, which we can talk about Kit in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, recently I was like, do you know what, gimbal's actually quite fun. Because also when a couple is doing their first dance for video, if they're just swaying side to side and not much is happening, and you're just stood in one place, it looks dull, like there's not much you can use of that. But if you're circling around them, not crazy, but like if you're moving, it makes that swaying a bit more romantic, a bit more dynamic. Yeah.
Dynamic, such a good word.
I really tried on that one. And so I always say to the photographer, before the start of the ceremony, before the speeches, I'm going to put my cameras there, I'm going to be stood there. For the first dance, I'm going to be moving around them. If that's okay, you know, I'll see where you are, but I'm going to try to stay out of your shot. And normally, like almost all the time actually, they're like, that's fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Even if they're thinking, damn it.
Yeah,
just get out of my shots.
Because we're a bit, I don't know about you, but I'm a bit obsessed with symmetry. So say for like, not obsessed, that's the wrong word, like I consider it. Like when they're walking back down the aisle after the ceremony, like for photography, I feel like it's got to be dead on center for that shot coming down, whereas I feel like video could be slightly to the side.
Yeah, because it's about their emotion, it's the movement that counts. So, and I think that's also one of those unwritten rules that when you're getting that shot, when you're getting confetti, you sort of say to the other, are you gonna like walk back with them? Or what are we doing? Because we have to do the same thing. You can't have one person stood and the other one following them. But yeah, I think the fact that you let the photographer sort of be in the middle and you can be off to the side, I don't mind that. I mean, sometimes I mind it, but mostly I don't.
Often I offer to go down on my knees. I'll say, do you want to get central? I'm more than happy to go like squat down here if you want to film above. And then 9 times out of 10 they just say, no, I'm quite happy to go to the side, that's fine.
Nice. But that's amazing that you give them that option. Immediately that would be like, amazing, we're gonna work great.
Yeah. I mean, it's very British of me, because if they then turned around and said, actually, yeah, that would be great, I'd be like, oh, right, okay.
Bring it on.
I'll get on my knees then on this whole cold, hard floor.
Even though I just offered it.
I know, yeah. I offered out of politeness, I didn't expect you to say yes. So, yeah.
Just classic.
We've got, like, there's so much there.
Yeah.
We're still friends, so we've had that discussion now.
Yeah.
Just about.